Hello and welcome everyone. I am Jake Sewell again. I'm fresh off a haircut, and for those of you that don't recognize me, and today I'll be moving on my discussion and we'll be talking about Chapter 4 of our textbook, The Transformational and Charismatic Leadership is the title of it. I thought what was most interesting about this was the fact that there's so many leaders and so many characteristics of a transformational and charismatic leader that are alike and dislike. And not alike. And I find that to be quite interesting, especially charismatic. The type of people that are charismatic, which you wouldn't expect to be just by their background and how effective of a leader they were. Moving on. What do I agree with? So I agreed with pretty much everything I read in the chapter. I kind of agreed, let me kind of catch myself. I agreed the most with the fact that when they were talking about the charismatic leaders and as well as the hierarchy of needs, I love that. And then kind of moving forward, what did I disagree with? I honestly really didn't disagree with a lot. It's kind of hard to find stuff in a textbook that you disagree with, but if I had to find something, it would just be some of the some of the examples of charismatic leaders I thought were kind of interesting. I didn't think they were too charismatic, which was kind of funny. And then what did I find interesting? I found a lot interesting about the chapter, kind of going off of, sorry, I kind of lost my little scroller, but what I find most interesting about the chapter is the fact that of all the leaders and all the characteristics of leaders, there's so many things that we really do know and don't know. And I kind of thought that like leaders that push you a lot and once you get your work done are all success that kind of form results that are successful, as well as the more loose end leader that kind of lets workers do what they want, and they get more involved. I thought that was pretty cool and interesting. But the fact of the matter is, not all leaders are the same. And reading that, you kind of figure that out. A lot of them do have characteristics of a charismatic leader. They also have characteristics of a transformational leader, which is kind of funny because before this, I would have never thought that. So to say that is interesting is one thing in itself. I think that this chapter of all the chapters that we've read so far is the most interesting because I consider myself a leader, and I consider myself a charismatic leader, and the more I read into it, the more I consider myself a transformational leader, just because there's so many characteristics of both that I'm like, okay, I would definitely consider myself on this side and that side. But both are incredibly interesting. All are incredibly interesting, I should say. But again, to kind of summarize and put everything together, there were a lot of things I agreed with. There were a minimal amount of things I disagreed with. There were so many things in the chapter I found interesting, and as well as the examples and all of the kind of going off of who is what, and they can both be successful. I thought, gosh, I can't explain enough how I think it's cool how there can be so many different leadership styles and ways that you can kind of put together a group and come as one. And I think that there's multiple ways of getting it done. I think that's cool in itself that we as a society can do that. But again, I'm Jake Sewell. This is for Com 381. I appreciate you listening to this 5 minutes of video where I talk about leadership. I will be continuing on, and I will be talking here shortly about Chapter 5. So please listen next week. Thank you, and goodbye.